Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Princess Grace Irish Library this evening. And I'm delighted to welcome Wolfgang Frei, who is the nephew of Edward Quinn, the Irish photographer who captured that perfect moment, the moment when the couple met and they didn't even know they were a couple yet, Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier. So we're delighted to have you here this evening, Wolfgang. And you have some friends here in the audience. We have Thomas Fulleron, who's director of the Palace Library and Archives, and also Mr. Vincent Vatrican, who is the director of the Institut Audiovisuel. So we're delighted that you came. And we also have our trustee, Mark Armstrong. So thank you all, every single one of you, for joining, as well as the press. You can't invite a photographer without having the press here as well. So thank you for your patience as we took a couple of photos. So I just wanted to say a few words. Wolfgang has worked with his uncle Ted on numerous books and film projects, and you can have a look at these afterwards. This beautiful, heavy book full of thousands of pictures, and you're going to find out all about the archives that Wolfgang and his wife Ursula have been managing since 2011. And in fact, we were talking earlier, and Wolfgang said that he literally just retired from his job as a documentary producer, and suddenly he inherited the archives. So his second career started managing that, and that is well served for the media and the newspapers around the world, who still absolutely adore Grace Kelly, Princess Grace, and The Wedding in the Century. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Wolfgang, and thank you all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You can hear me in the back? Okay. I have two problems now. One is my bad English, and the other one is the Windows computer, because I'm a Mac guy. But Paula will help me when I have get problems. This photograph was taken by Edward Quinn on May 6th, 1955, on a quiet afternoon at the Prince's Palace in Monaco. A simple handshake between a bachelor prince and a Hollywood star. But in the history of Monaco, this moment would become something much bigger. In many ways, this moment was a kind of big bang for Monaco's modern history. How did a boy from Dollymount, Dublin, end up in the throne room of Monaco, documenting one of the fairy tales of the 20th century? Edward Quinn, Ted to his friends and to us, was born in 1920. His father worked at the Guinness brewery. Ted was a man of many lives. He was a jazz musician in Belfast during the war. He survived the German air raid when a church roof collapsed right next to him, and that moment changed his life. This miracle sent him straight to the Royal Air Force, where he became radio navigator in Lancaster bombers. From jazz clubs to bombing missions over Europe. After the war, he became a navigator on charter planes between Europe and Africa, in an imposing uniform with very elegant trousers. In 1948, he flew in the Berlin airlift. But the most important flight of his life was from Tanger to Marseille, where he met Great Sulzer. Great was from a solid bourgeois family, Swiss. She was the sister of my mother, so my aunt, and that's why Quinn became my uncle. She was like a Swiss watch, as she said, but with Ted, nothing was normal. Great was working in Monaco in the asset management of the Austrian Count Ceylon. Ted followed his heart and her to the Riviera in 1949. He arrived with no money and no plan, but with his guitar, moved in a tiny flat in the old town, just a stone's throw from the palace. With a view here from his flat of the harbour that was still quite empty back then. At first, he went back to music. He printed cards calling himself Eddie Quinero, a voice, a melody, a guitar. I've always wondered why he needed that stage name, but he said that back then, as a musician in a dance band, you needed an Italian name. He made dance music with his band and performed in bars, at galas and other events on the Côte d'Azur. But he soon realized that music played second fiddle to other topics on the Côte. In the early 50s, the world was hungry for glamour. Ted needed to pay the rent. He realized that pretty girls were the currency of the day. He bought a camera and began teaching himself photography with books and specialized magazines. Soon his work appeared in magazines like Illustrated, Bild or The Post. This is a picture of a wall at his home with his press clippings of covers with his photos. Pin-ups were in demand. He had no model agency. He visited the beauty contests that were frequent at that time, or just walked onto the beach and asked and took such innocent photos like of this lady in the Angora bikini. The Miss Angora, by the way, was a Miss Contest, Miss Angora. The National Enquirer in New York even sent him specific instructions like this: "We prefer the bikini swimsuit and the type of figure that fills it out well." But the Côte d'Azur was, of course, more than just beaches and pretty girls. By the mid-1950s, it was the center of the glamorous world. It was a 100-kilometer stage stretching from Monaco, with a traffic jam at the border in 1955, to Monaco, the Rocher 1949, long before a stadium, skyscrapers and Fontvieille. And Nice, the old-fashioned beauty, here the Quai des États-Unis in 1954. And by the way, with the car, the Peugeot of Quinn, to the Elegant Gun, with the annual highlight of the film festival, and some nice limousines here, bigger and smaller. Right down to this tiny fishing village, Saint-Tropez. The world was recovering from the war, and the air was full of an almost euphoric optimism, where everything seemed to be moving up and forward. Quinn saw that on this stretch of coast, everyone who was anyone was present. The demand for photos of these celebrities was exploding, and soon, with 2 Rolleiflex cameras and a Leica and a big flash, he became a press photographer. Ted's archive is a total who is who of that era. There is probably no photographer from back then, and certainly not from today, who has so many celebrities in his archive. Because there has never been another place like the Côte d'Azur of the 50s and 60s where simply everyone was. He soon had a network of barmen, porters and concierge who gave him tips about who was arriving incognito. He saw everything and everyone. The rich celebrities, for example. The richest of the rich, Aristotle Onassis. Quinn was a regular on his yacht, the Christina. Onassis had turned the Canadian warship into a floating palace. By the way, when I show now a photo of celebrity, I'll pause for a moment so you can guess who it is. All photos are by Quinn. Business people like Gianni Agnelli, the Fiat owner, with Lee Radziwill, the sister of Jackie Kennedy. The politicians, you know him. Winston Churchill was a frequent guest at the Côte d'Azur. He even photographed the first German Bundeskanzler, Konrad Adenauer, with his famous Mercedes, the Adenauer Mercedes called. The nobles, like the elegant Duke of Windsor, the former King Edward, who abdicated from the throne because he wanted to marry the divorced socialite Wallis Simpson. Here with his pug Breezy fighting against a sudden blast at Nice airport. The Monaco Grand Prix brought racing legends like the great Manuel Fangio, 1950 in a Alfa Romeo Alfetta, and Sterling Moss after winning the 1956 Grand Prix. Here you can see how close photographers, radio reporters and cameramen got to the celebrities. Something like that is unimaginable today in the highly regulated media world of celebrities. The Riviera also had famous playboys like Porfirio Rubirosa. Here with Sacha Gabor in his private plane, a gift he had received from his wife. But he's here with, was at the Côte d'Azur with Sacha Gabor. The aircraft later played a role in the film Catch-22. And of course, there was another playboy, you know him, Gunter Sachs, who was briefly the husband of Brigitte Bardot. Here with friends on his Riva Ariston boat in 1961. The writers. Georges Simenon, author of a total of 75 detective novels featuring Inspector Maigret in his Villa Golden Gate in Cannes in 1955. Breakfast in Bed. Somerset Maugham, yes, one of the most widely read English language authors of the 20th century, at his Villa Mauresque in Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat in 1954. That's all. François Sagan, right, the author of Bonjour Tristesse, and a great sports cars enthusiast in a Jaguar XK 120 in a showroom in Cannes. She bought this car afterwards. Nobel Prize winning poet T.S. Eliot and his wife Valérie, newly married in Menton 1957. And then there were the movie stars, the ultimate fuel for Ted's camera. Yeah, the eternal cowboy John Wayne was caught looking at the camera as if he were holding a revolver on Onassis yacht Christina. Marlene Dietrich and her personal hairdresser René preparing for a performance at the Polio Gala night at the Sporting d'Été in Monte Carlo in 1954. One of the most legendary highlights, yes, was the romance between Kim Novak and Cary Grant at the 1959 Cannes Film Festival. Kim Novak is, alongside Sophia Loren and Jane Fonda, one of the few stars of that era who who is still alive. He captured the cool elegance of Alain Delon and Jane Fonda, arriving in Antibes with his Ferrari California Spider. This car was hammered at an auction in Paris in 2015 for a record-breaking 18.5 million euro. It's one of the most sold photos we have. It's because there are people who like the stars and people who like the car. It's another little car, Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper's long legs fit well into this Fiat Jolly of English millionaire James Hansen that was near Hotel Edenrock in Cap d'Antibes. This time it always seems to me represented by a variety of cars that differed completely and brands that one recognized immediately, in contrast to today where they all look pretty similar. Liz Taylor, at the party after the screening of Around the World in 80 Days at the Cannes Film Festival in 1957. Yes, Gina Lollobrigida, leaving a gala evening in a hotel bus in Monte Carlo 1955. And everybody knows her. The 18 years old Brigitte Bardot, during filming of Manina la fille sans voile on a yacht near Villefranche harbour, still with brown hair. A bit later, Kurt Jürgens and Brigitte Bardot during filming of Adieu créé à la femme at the Studio de la Victorine in Nice, 1956. The caption for this photo was "A privileged view." Sophia Loren looking out of the sea from her room in the Carlton Hotel. I've always wondered who the lucky owner of these shoes on the left was. On this photo you will find a later superstar, Audrey Hepburn, at that time with the name Audrey Hepburn, Ted's greatest discovery story. In 1951 she was unknown, 22 years old, playing a small part in Monte Carlo Baby. You can see her here on the film set at the Hôtel de Paris in Monte Carlo. Ted was floored by her and asked for a photo shoot. They drove to the village of Aes for photographs with Quinn's tiny old 1930 Matisse car. And he took these photos of her. Her gamine beauty was in great contrast to the bosomy glamour of the times, and set a new style for young actresses. The only problem was the old car of Quinn. The battery died on their way back to Monaco. Ted actually had to ask the future icon to help push the car until they got to a steep road down to the Corniche. She did it with a smile, as Quinn told me, and those photos helped her land her breakout role in Roman Holiday. Her agent in Hollywood showed those photos to the Paramount heads, and she was asked to make a screen test and consequently got the leading part in Roman Holiday. And now, in 1954, Ted met Grace Kelly for the first time. She was in town filming Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief. Ted said she was the cool, enigmatic star. Here she arrives at Cannes station with the Train Bleu, greeted by Hitchcock. Grace Kelly and Cary Grant on the film set of To Catch a Thief, directed by Alfred Hitchcock in 1954 in Cannes. Grace Kelly and Alfred Hitchcock take afternoon tea on the set of To Catch a Thief. He sits in the chair of Cary Grant. For me, one of the most beautiful photos of Grace Kelly on the movie set of To Catch a Thief in 1954. A year later, here she's putting jewelry away safely in her train case in her room at the Carlton Hotel. And she was a photographer too. You see her Rolleiflex camera on the left. And relaxing in the lobby of the hotel during the festival 1955. A grapefruit for Grace Kelly at the Cannes Film Festival. A typical Quinn photo, not posed exactly at the right moment. Or this one, Grace Kelly beams from a flower-adorned wagon at the Bataille des Fleurs of Cannes in 1955. And you see the title of the story in Paris Match, Intrigue et Romance. And as you know, Grace also played a role here. A love affair. Grace Kelly with fashion designer Oleg Cassini, later Jacqueline Kennedy's exclusive designer. Here at a cocktail party given by Jacques Fath at his home Moulin de Jocko in 1954. A year later, another love affair, Grace Kelly and Jean-Pierre Aumont at the film festival. By 1955, Ted already knew Prince Rainier quite well. He had photographed him many times in his private life. He visited him in his bachelor hideout, the Villa Iberia, in Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, here in the background. He photographed the prince with his Lancia. Rainier was a car enthusiast, competed under a pseudonym of Louis Carlades at the Tour de France de l'Automobile, where he crashed into a tree. By the way, all the prince's cars had a Monaco license plate ending in 77. In his workshop, where he would relax by carving crucifixes or working on car engines. Quinn captured him with his dogs Bella, John and Whiskey, and even with his 3-year-old chimpanzee Tanagra. He had also been on board the Prince's yacht, the Deo Ivante II, in November 1953. One of the reports featuring Quinn's photos in Paris Match in 1954. You can see the subtitle, Il reste un souverain solitaire. But he also had his romantic relationships. Quinn photographed Gisèle Pascal, French actress and former girlfriend of Prince Rainier. But then came this famous first meeting between Grace and Prince Rainier. I'll let Quinn himself tell you how that came about. Here is a short extract from a documentary that I produced about Quinn a few years ago.
Paris Match decided to do a story of her visiting Prince Rainier at the palace. So I went to cover that story because I was chosen by Paris Match to do it. I knew Grace, I knew Prince Rainier. So there was quite an incident because they had a big American car. It was Metro Goldwyn Mayer driving Grace Kelly over to the palace, and I was following behind with my Peugeot 203. And just up at the corner here, actually here in Cannes, at the corner, they sped around the turn. It's still there. It's the same very sharp turn. And I came around and banged right into them at the back. Lumps of my car fell off the front bumper and things like that. they all got out and had a look. Nothing was wrong with their car, so we all went on from there. We got to Monaco. When we got there, Prince Rainier was late for the appointment. So I had the idea, as a photographer always does have some idea, would it be interesting if we went and visited the palace where we were waiting? So the head of the guard said, yes, that would be all right, and gave us a guide. So before Prince Rainier arrived, I had taken the pictures of Grace Kelly in every room of the palace, practically, including the throne room. And of course, nobody visualized anything at that stage. There was no question that there would be any follow-up. When Prince Rainier arrived, Grace Kelly gave that kind of very discreet American bow, bending her knee, and they shook hands. Then they were inside, so I said to Prince Rainier, Grace said, don't think it'd be a good idea if we go out in the garden where the light is better. I'll be able to get better shots. So they went out in the garden, and then we followed discreetly behind, and I got quite a very nice set of pictures.
Okay, I'll show you these pictures, some of these pictures now. Okay, Prince Rainier took Grace off to the ramparts and showed her the view onto his principality. In the garden, the ice broke. They visited Rainier's private zoo. Grace was terrified, but impressed. The prince took Grace down to his small tropical gardens and named some of his exotic plants and cactuses brought in from all over the world. The photos from this meeting appeared in countless magazines, probably the most widely published reportage. Here Oggi, The Star, Motion Picture, Schweizer Illustrierte, Paris Match, and so on. A year later, the wedding. The media interest was enormous. Here 2 telegrams. Some of you may remember this form of communication. From telegrams from photo agencies urgently requesting photos from Quinn. One is from New York, from an agency, another one from Copenhagen. But the time of the wedding of the century, things began to change a lot for the media. Suddenly the innocent Riviera for the journalists was gone. Exclusivity became a business. Grace brought her own American photographer, Howell Conant. Rainier had a PR man, Rupert Allen. An example for the restrictions for the press photographers. A document regarding the Gala de Pâques in 1959 says it all. Ils, the photographers, seront alors autorisés à prendre des photos de la table princière pendant une durée strictement limitée à 3 minutes. The free runs were over, not only at events of the Principality, but also with the stars. There were more and more public relation agents and staged short appearances for the photographers. This contradicted the style of Quinn's way to photograph. But he still managed to take good photos. You see the other photographers on the wrong side of the car. Or this here, Prince Rainier and Princess Grace dancing at the Monaco Grand Prix Gala in 1960. Or Prince Albert on the 5th anniversary of the Monaco Oceanographic Museum in 1960. But Quinn was an Irish gentleman, too shy and too polite to be a mob paparazzo like these here he photographed during the wedding of Rainier and Grace. He didn't want to fight for some minutes of the celebrity's profile, so he changed his focus. If the stars and celebrities were closing their doors, the artists were opening theirs for Quinn. Jean Cocteau, for example, making a drawing for the Cannes Film Festival. Le Corbusier at the small restaurant L'Étoile de Mer, next to his vacation cabin Le Cabanon at Roquebrune, Cap Martin. Salvador Dali poses at his studio with his ink drawing of a Madonna and her child, finished in 1958 at Salvador Dali's house in Cadaqués. Marc Chagall with his second wife, Valentine, and a friend at his home in Saint-Paul-de-Vence. Alexander Calder presents one of his mobiles during a visit to the art dealer Aimé Mag in Saint-Paul-de-Vence, 1961. David Hockney, drawing at his studio in Paris, 1975. Alberto Giacometti in the room with his sculptures, looking like one of his figures, at the Fondation Mag Saint-Paul-de-Vence in 1964. Francis Bacon at his London studio in 1980. This studio was removed in 1998 and relocated with all its contents exactly as it was at Dublin City Gallery, the U Lane. All this mess is exactly like it was. And then, of course, two other Irish artists, Louis Le Brocqui. I think there is a painting here of Louis Le Brocqui. Louis Le Brocqui and his wife Anne Madden at their studio with the painting L'Ocel Venus in Carros, 1964. And then, of course, Pablo Picasso, here at work at the Maduro Pottery in Vallauris, 1953. Edward Quinn met Picasso in 1951 and photographed him for the first time. Their friendship lasted until Picasso's death in 1973. Quinn took more than 10,000 photos of Picasso. Today, my wife and I keep the Edward Quinn archive alive. If you want to see more photos, we present about 17,000 images on our website, edwardquinn.com. Edward Quinn's Stories is a Riviera cocktail of its own. It's a mix of Royal Air Force bravery, Irish charm, and the sheer luck of crashing a Peugeot into a future princess, all in the search for that one perfect, unrepeatable moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. I think we all have the same sentiment. You brought us on a very nostalgic, wonderful journey back in time. And all I can say is I wish I had an uncle like that. You were very lucky. But you described it so well. And thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. And I hope you will share an Irish whiskey and a bit more chat. So thank you again.